A man gets a call from the bank after rescuing a girl who was sleeping in the snow. Chris drove carefully and at a slow pace, watching for any signs of black ice on the road ahead. As soon as he spotted her curled up in the snow, he hit the brakes hard. He quickly jumped out of his car, scooped her up, and cranked up the heat before rushing to the nearest medical facility. Even though he had no idea who she was, he saved her life. He broke down and started crying when the bank called. One of Chris Collins' jobs was driving a truck, and that day he found himself traveling on a snowy roadway in Michigan. He was going through a difficult time, worse than ever before. There were mounds of snow all around, and winter was well into the season. To avoid hitting any icy spots on the road, he drove cautiously. Had he not been so careful, he most likely would not have noticed her. Chris had been working crazy hours for the past 2 months, so his weariness was not surprising. Even though he didn't get much sleep, he continued to take on new jobs. There was nothing he could do but head toward disaster. Chris was in his late 30s and had a wife and a daughter. His wife, Samantha, was employed in the administrative field. Although everything was supposed to be going smoothly, they received a heartbreaking phone call months ago. Their daughter, Lucy, had been diagnosed with a rare illness. Although there was a solution, it was far more expensive than they could manage. She required surgery, but the family would undoubtedly go bankrupt as a result. Chris assured his wife that he would figure something out. He was on the road that day for that reason. However, he was driving right into disaster without realizing it. As he watched for black ice, he drove carefully. When he noticed her, he stopped his car and activated his hazard lights. All she had on was a blouse and pants, and she lay in the snow in a fetal position, nearly buried. He attempted to wake her, but she did not respond, and his heart was pounding. He shook her cold body and screamed for her to wake up, but she didn't react. Fearfully, he felt for a pulse at her neck. Just as he was about to panic because her skin was freezing, her eyelids sprang open. She looked up at Chris and nearly whimpered, "Help me." Without hesitation, he picked her up and loaded her into his truck. At that moment, he noticed her ID drop from her pocket as he scooped her up. He stared down at it for a moment before giving it back to her. She seemed somewhat familiar, but he quickly forgot about the ID as he set the heat on full blast. He asked her what had happened and headed straight to the nearest hospital, but she never responded. He kept consoling and encouraging her. In an odd way, she reminded him of his little daughter back home. He rushed her to the hospital, where the physicians informed him that he had saved her life and that she required specialized treatment. Chris explained what had transpired, and the police arrived quickly, showing immediate interest in him. They immediately began questioning him. He told them he didn't know who she was, but he provided them with all the information he had. The identity of the woman whose life he had just rescued was unknown to him. A week after the event, Chris's phone rang. It was the hospital, and they wanted to thank him face-to-face for saving her life. He recalled that he believed the woman required assistance. He truly cared about her and wanted to see her in person to check on her health. The mother was staying in the hospital where his daughter frequently visited. He conversed with the woman for hours on end and even informed her of his daughter's situation. However, he was still unsure of the woman's identity. The woman thanked him for the 10th time, and then she and Chris parted ways. Although he felt proud of himself for saving her, he was devastated to learn that he was unable to rescue his own child. Chris's phone rang for the second time after another week had gone by. This time, it was the bank. A large sum of money had been deposited into his account anonymously. His phone rang again after he informed the bank that it must have been an error. One man asked, "Are you Lucy Collins' father?" "Yes," said Chris, his stomach dropping. The hospital usually had bad news when they called about Lucy. "What is this about?" he inquired, fearing the response. "Your daughter's operation has been scheduled. We'll take care of her if you bring her in 2 weeks. She will be staying for a few nights to recuperate, so pack your bags." Chris's eyes widened. "What is going on? Who is responsible for this?" he asked. The doctor clarified that although the patient wished to remain anonymous, the hospital had been notified to confirm that the money for the procedure had been credited to his account. Chris was speechless. When he checked his account, he saw that the bank's previous call had been accurate. His daughter had been saved by someone. He hurried to his wife. "Do you know who could have done this?" he asked. "No," she said, tears in her eyes. In an attempt to find the benefactor, they both started calling all of their friends and relatives. They didn't recognize anyone familiar until they arrived at the hospital, tired from a successful surgery. When Chris saw the woman, he gasped in surprise. He had saved her from the snow, but she looked drastically different this time. The unkempt, rough-looking girl who had trembled in the bitter cold for hours was gone. In her blue suit, the woman in front of him looked immaculate. As she walked into the room, her shoes clicked and clanked, and she wore a brilliant, sparkling smile. She appeared to be a completely different person. Who was she? The woman Chris rescued turned out to be the CEO of a prominent tech company often highlighted in the media. Chris would later realize he recognized her from these features. After hearing from the nurses about Chris's challenging situation with his daughter, she decided to help. She found a way to repay Chris's kindness by saving his daughter's life. This underscores the importance of being polite and respectful to everyone. You never know who you might encounter or what struggles they may be facing. Please give it a thumbs up and share it with your loved ones. Also subscribe and press the bell icon to never miss the update from our channel. Thank you.